And we will open up for discussions, trying to answer your question as well. So please identify yourselves and state your question as concise as possible. Ambassador will come to you, but let me offer, we'll pick up 3, 4, 5 questions, please. You will address the question.
My name is Alex Draglin. I come from Toronto, Canada. It's a very timely discussion, and we're all wondering what could be done. So I just want to look at examples of countries who were captive, as Moldova is, to the criminal element. And I think a good example is Mexico. I think about 10 years ago, the president created the federal police, and it was the one person in the whole state who had the courage to fight the drug cartels. And I think we probably in a similar situation in Moldova. We need one person who is incorruptible to take a major step like this and create an anti-corruption force, call it whatever. In Romania, it's called the anti-corruption, yes. But the idea is that the people have to give a lot of power to one person who is incorruptible. We all heard on the news the 56 members of the parliament who each received between $200,000 and $300,000 each to vote for a criminal, right? So even the parliament in Moldova is fully corruptible. You can buy the whole parliament. One person in the state basically stood up at a time when we probably all lost hope there is anybody who can stand up to that oligarchy. I think it's time the people just went into the streets and entrusted that one person, who presently is the president, maybe our last hope, entrusted this person to create a major force that can fight corruption. Looking at the, again, history of countries like Mexico, I bet we could learn a lot. I think the mechanisms that work in developed countries, they are not fit for the crisis we're facing right now. I think there needs to be an anti-crisis measure first that brings justice, at least, back in the country, and then a lot of things can happen afterwards. If there's a force that can prosecute those criminals, those oligarchs, then things will start to move in the right direction. I think that's a good start.
Thank you very much for your contribution. Other questions? Ambassador, you had a question. Who else? Please. Okay, we'll pick up for questions. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. I obviously left the parliament too early. You know, I've worked with the civil society, and I was sitting once with Oazon Antoy at a meeting, hearing some of the politicians in the Republic of Moldova speaking about what should be done. This is, once again, my message to all of us, because we are all part of the diaspora here. Not only what, but how. These were the words of Oazo. Ask them how, and they will drown. We don't know not only what has to be done, but how to do it. And Vadim, with whom I had the pleasure to actually study together back in Moldova, actually mentioned a couple of remarks. So I would like to ask several questions to the panelists. And as a matter of fact, some of them are actually rhetorical. So this would be very useful for the diaspora meeting. On government and management, I spoke with someone back at home, and I said we need to force the mid-management and the high management to do management courses because they have no clue about management. How do we do that? Okay, the advisory role mentioned by Vadim is one of the options to do the coaching, essentially. But the other is, can diaspora organize itself, and sorry for repetition, organize, offer at least, management courses for important institutions at least, focusing on important institutions. Second, on the Inspector Katani. Yeah? Yeah, it's very nice. It's very nice. I was offered a position that would influence the situation decisively. You know what was my first question? Will I have protection for my family? The answer was no. So I'm here. And I left the parliament, so. Can we ensure, as a diaspora, some sort of a help for the Moldovan institutions? That's an important question that we should ask ourselves. Do we work at World Bank as a diaspora representatives? Do we work at IMF? Do we work in any other institutions in the United States of America? Yes, we do. Can we influence those institutions? Can we at least find out something about those institutions? How can they help? Can we talk to the persons responsible in those institutions? Sure we can. On banking, on external evaluation mentioned by Maya Sandu. I did external evaluation, efficiency evaluation for OSI, for Soros Foundation. I have met with UNDP evaluators myself. These are private companies. Who does the evaluation for IMF and World Bank? If we ask them, we can find out who does that. If we ask the IMF and World Bank who does the evaluation for the IMF and World Bank, we might give them maybe an idea who can do the evaluation for the Republic of Moldova, and maybe in their dialogue with the Republic of Moldova, speaking of external pressure, they can actually request it, because the help that is offered to the Republic of Moldova, should it be conditional? Do you think it should be conditional? I think it should be conditional. If you do that, the government, then we will help you with that and that. Can diaspora decide today, after this MAC, write, I don't know, a letter to the US Congress? Vadim? Do you think that would be a good idea to motivate the constituencies here in the United States to make some of the steps and influence the state institutions that are working with the Republic of Moldova, US state institutions that are working with the Republic of Moldova? I did monitoring of the EU Moldova Action Plan in 2008, and this monitoring was done by 19 civil society experts. Underfunded, yeah, the donors want best results possible for cheap. So, but it's still okay to work. But can you help civil society to continue such monitorings in specific areas, particularly the areas that are very important? Can you do that? If we talk about the foreign partnership, the partnership, internal and external partnership, there is a way to force essentially change in the Republic of Moldova, and this forcing the change is by conditioning the help that is given by external partners to the Republic of Moldova in exchange of concrete actions done by the Republic of Moldova. So, can we talk to our partners about it? Yeah, of course we can talk about it. Can you talk about it as diaspora? Of course you can talk. Yeah, you know, we all remember, Dorin has mentioned, Buricev has mentioned that, you know, external factors and so on and so forth. Damata cine ești? Yeah, there is no profit in the Republic of Moldova. We are all smarter than anyone else. But it cannot continue for forever that we will wait for profit to come from abroad. We have to do that, and we have to ask for the help from abroad, but we also have to start the change inside as well. That's what I think. And one last question. Do you think that East or West, I cannot refrain myself, you know. Do you think that countries to the east of Moldova will ever ask Moldova do some reforms? And what about the countries to the west of Moldova in the European Union? Will they ask Moldova to do some reforms? And when they see that the reforms are not done, will they pressure Moldova to do that? I think the Western partners are a sort of a more reliable way to, I'm speaking as a diplomat, it's a more reliable way to actually ensure that some of the reforms are at least forced upon the Republic of Moldova. And this can only be done by our Western partners, because the Eastern partners, they don't like reforms.
Ambassador, thank you very much. Questions? I saw, please introduce yourself and state the question. Yeah.
Okay. Can you hear me? Okay, my name is Sam Henderzak. I'm from Chicago Public Schools, and my concern is education, mostly apprentice program for your country. We all agree life is hard. It's much harder when you're uneducated, unskilled, or unconnected, or have connections. At our school, we have different programs like automotive, graphic arts, calligraphy, depending on what your interest is. I'm going to stick to our automotive program. I'm going to tell you a small little story. There's a little kid who went to our automotive program. Within 3 years, he was AMS certified. He dropped out. He came back a couple of years later. He ended up going to a little accreditation school for about $12,000. He ended up getting a job at Toyota. What he didn't know is the guy who runs that accreditation school is good friends with my friend Charles. He gives him a call. He asks him, like, what do you think of this kid? Like, yeah, accept him. He knows what he's doing. Same thing when he got a job at Toyota. He knows the guy who runs the company. Gives him a call, like, yeah, I let him work on my car all day. I have no problem with that. It's setting up these small little programs that give your students potential, because he's really good at being a mechanic, but if he dropped out of school, he's not going to give $60,000 to go to IIT and pick up these skills. But for $10,000, $11,000, where he could pick this up, and he's technically benefiting our economy, he's potentially making $50,000 versus he could be unemployment or be on welfare where he's costing us $20,000 or potentially end up in jail. About 35% of our people in jail are because of poverty reasons, so he's costing us our
Can you
country.
please state your question? Sorry for interrupting.
My question is more like, do you have apprentice programs in your school system for like high school level, grammar school level, where you potentially give your countrymen skills? Because if they don't want to get educated, might as well give them a skill and technically give them a better chance at life versus working minimum wage versus making a potential living for him and his family.
Thank you. The question. Other questions, please. Please. State your question, and we'll come back to the stories
Excuse
and
me.
other sharing of opinions at a later stage. Please, please.
Yeah, I don't know why, but every time when someone was invited to ask a question, my micro, got red, so I was the one supposed to. My name is Valentin Ștefan, and I am Romanian from Romania, and I work in the corporate investigation industry. I study nationalism. I have 3 remarks to make. One is that I don't think Moldova is worse now than it was 10, 5, or 20 years ago, right? And there are a lot of smart people there, so I would have more faith for the country. So this is the first one. The second one is to Maya Sandu. You said you talk about National Bank of Moldova that they could have done more than they actually did. Just as a disclaimer, I was part of the team that investigated, so I was in Moldova in February. So I don't think National Bank of Moldova could have done more than they did. If they withdraw the license to one bank, they should have done it to all of them. So there is a big problem, institutional issue in Moldova when it comes to legislation and the well-function of companies and banks and everything else. So, yeah, but what I want to say is that in the U.S. there is this department called Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. It has both supervision and enforcement powers. And I think that kind of institutions or department or however you want to call it, agency, could be a solution for Moldovan problems with the banking system. My second point is to Dorin Paraska. Don't start building something around national identity. There is nationalism divides. Nationalism doesn't bring people together. If you want to have a principle or something to unite people, just try something like $10,000 per capita or some kind of a goal than actually something that is just historically very bad. And I'm not talking as a Romanian, I'm talking, I hope you got the message. Sending money for political platforms from outside the country is illegal in many countries, and it's also illegal in Moldova. So it's not that easy just to send money and sponsor a party there. What you could actually do is to go back home. That's, I think, the greatest thing diaspora can do for a country is to gain experience and build knowledge and have the capacity to do great things by going back home and doing something there, either politics or civil society or anything else. You can change things from abroad, but you cannot change a country via email or phone calls or other, I don't know, what else. And the final conclusion is that, and as a how I see that Moldova can change is, to give you an example, Ala Roșca was talking about NGOs and civil society. I think in 2008, at that time, President Voroni passed a law allowing the seeds or putting the seeds for civil society. He didn't do that because he's very open-minded person. He did that because the European Union forced him to do in exchange for financial support. That allowed now 5-6 years later to have quite a strong social civil society in Moldova. So I think the solution is to have on one side pressure from international partners, just like it happened in Romania, to impose legislation. You want money, you pass this law. The same thing happened in Romania. The anti-corruption institution we have now, they are built on legislation that was passed 15 years ago. So that's one thing. And the other thing is to have diaspora getting involved in what's happening in Moldova by going home. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your remarks. Other questions? Poftim. O să luăm toate întrebările, după care o să răspundem.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Please state your questions, and the comments will leave for later. Thank you.
I'll try to be as quick as I can. Good afternoon, everybody. Every once in a while, I go back to Moldova and visit my relatives and friends who I still have plenty. And one thing I noticed that they're all good at heart, and they all have a very good sense of what's right and what's wrong. And to me, this is like enormous power of judgment in the country that is at no use. They have no political power. These people that I talk to, they all know what's wrong, they all know what's good. But somehow this feedback from the people up to the parliament, to the government is broken. What in that political system in Moldova that needs to be changed ultimately as an ultimate goal to make this enormous power to work? Where's the problem? Is that the constitution that's been written in Rush at some point that's not working anymore? Or is it actually a law? Like in the example, give the 10% of the parents of the school a power to kick out the principal. All the bad principals will be gone very quick. So in my view, the political system somewhere is missing. That this, I don't know, is it needs to be at the regional level or like it should start from the lower level, but somehow it needs to be changed. So the feedback, the good feedback, takes power and takes precedence, and then we will have trust, and then we will have the things happening.
Thank you for your question. Stefan, I'll be back to you. Here, we had some, please.
Is it working now?
Yes.
I've got a really quick question for Mr. Mark Marr about separatism as a huge issue for Moldova. It's not just Transnistria, it's also Gagauz region. It is also a region in the north of the country, Belt region. On November 26, about 13 men were captured in plotting some uprising, pro-Russian uprising. And Russia keeps supporting Transnistria, and Russian troops are still based there, even though they should have left in 2002, according to the Istanbul Agreement of 1999. So, and there's South Bessarabia of Odessa region, so there's a huge problem of separatism, and how can we fight that? Or, yeah.
Other questions, please. Please.
Okay, great. First of all, thanks everyone. This is amazing material, amazing thoughts. I actually don't know where to start, to be honest with you. I'll tell you this much. It strikes me that we're still not with our feet on the ground. We're not very practical, you know. We talk about, you know, we use these big words, and it's great, you know, to convey concepts. Unfortunately, it's not very practical, you know. I'll give you an example, and that's about the bank supervision that Madam Minister mentioned. You know, we have two different solutions. One is, let's use the supervisor from the IMF and World Bank, right? Sounds like a good idea on paper, right? I personally think it's a bad idea. Hire a guy from the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency at the Federal Reserve, the guy who has seen the good, the bad, and the ugly, pay him a nominal amount of money, invite him over to Moldova, ask him to take a look. He's a bank examiner. He's seen fraud. He knows exactly how to do it. So here you go. You're becoming very practical. You solve the problem right there and then. Again, Office of the Comptroller of the Currency. My real question, you know, is, so what about the $1 billion? Where did it go? I mean, seriously, we dance around the subject like it's funny money, you know, but this is no monopoly game. These are, again, this is diaspora money going into Moldova, multiplied by that velocity. That's exactly what it is. So in that practical mindset, what I'd like to recommend, and I'm not sure who's the right person to sign on behalf of the government of Moldova, but if I were them, I'd sign a contract, you know, finder's fee, get yourself 25%, outsource it to a detective agency, figure it out. There is breadcrumbs everywhere. These guys were not able to do this around the SWIFT system, right? So there's got to be a way to find these guys. My only, you know, I'm all for bringing the, you know, we represent 17 states here in the US. I'm all for talking to our individual representatives. Absolutely, give them a call. Whatever we decide here, give them a call. And you know what, even if it's noise, but if it gets multiplied, it becomes something, you know, and then you have some kind of a resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Ovidiu. Other questions, please.
Hello, everybody. My name is Ruslan Vdovichenko from San Francisco, California. And my short question is for Maya Sandu. What's the short-term goal and long-term goal for political in Moldova, in the Republic of Moldova? Thank you.
Another question, please.
Hi, my name is Callan Lupin. I'm from Montreal, Canada. And I'm going to use Mr. Meyer's example and go 20 years back in Romania. I was actually there as well. I wasn't working for Iliescu, I was working for Arthur Anderson. And I had an interesting occasion to witness an American company. It was a venture capital firm that came to Romania at a time when nobody else wanted to invest. And they have brought American money, and it was one of my clients. And I have witnessed the transformation that this simple act had on Romania in those industries that they chose to invest. They invested in Rompetrol at a time when nobody would have touched that. They invested in agriculture, and I've seen the value that they have created both for the investors and for the country in which they decided to invest. And I believe that's a strong contribution to governance that we as Moldovan diaspora that I see around, we have so much expertise. We know how to run venture capital firms. We know how to run financial services, how to trading, you know, so many skills. And I believe there is also money that we could attract. do you guys think that it's feasible for us to organize some kind of an investment initiative? You know, it could be as simple as angel investing, and could be more complex as private equity firm that could go to Moldova, and basically for each $1 billion that exits Moldova, you know, we can go back. I don't know if we can have $1 billion behind us, but even $1 million that is well invested in our country could make a huge change and could contribute to the governance. You know, in addition to the ideas, in addition to the NGOs, I believe that the business has a really big role to play in this transformation that is necessary for our country.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Another question? Stefan? Please be concise.
Okay, thank you. My name is Stefan Gligor. I'm a lawyer and attorney from Chisinau. First of all, thank you for inviting and accepting to the organizers, and thank you to Vadim Brzan for motivating my participation at this event. Hundreds of thoughts in my head, while I try to be very concise. We know exactly the problems and we know exactly the solutions. However, we are being very general. There was no any historical moment in the history of this country when Moldova needed you, its diaspora, as much as today. You are basically the hope of this country, and your help and assistance is very much needed. Moldova was designed, as any modern state was designed, as check and balances system on the basis of the principle of checks and balances. Well, we failed it. Politicians play games all the time. This is what they do, actually. They play their interest. The state system is designed the way that the judicial system intervenes and stops them and generate balance and stability. Well, we failed. The judicial system, if you look to the details, and I'm an attorney and I see problems through facts and details, the judicial system is subordinated to the politics. There is no balance. The general prosecutor is elected by the parliament. The Supreme Council of Magistrates has 12 members. This is the self-governing institution of judges, who cleans up the judge corps and nominate other judges, who have to stop those oligarchs and so on. Well, if you think the self-governing institution of the judges is controlled by the judges, you're wrong. 6 of them are elected by the judges, but 6 of them are political representatives under different forms of the government, elected by the parliament. It's 3 professors, Ministry of Justice, General Prosecutor Office, and so on. The same if you look at the Supreme Council of Prosecutors. The prosecutors actually do not control, they cannot clean up its own body, because out of 12, 6 are nominated by the parliament, and so on. Well, this system is designed basically to fail. And what makes the difference is the today's situation. As we speak now, Mr. Timofty's candidate has resigned. He has withdrawn his candidature. And the compromise figure will be appointed as the prime minister, the one delegated by the Democratic Party. So the history is going on right now, it's happening right now. What we can really do, we can generate an alternative and support that alternative. And one of the persons who I hope will generate this alternative is among us. So what is my message? You are very much your assistance and help. And it doesn't matter what kind of help. Is it a like on Facebook? Is it a share of your thoughts? Or it's $1 sent home to those people you believe can make a change? It's very much needed, like never. Thank you.
Thank you, Stefan, for your comments. We've taken several questions, and I'd like the panelists to respond to them. Maya, could you please start?
Oh, just a few comments on the issue of training management and offering management courses. I would pick up on the issue that was just mentioned by Stefan. the question is, whom are you going to train and whether they're going to stay there, because this is what I've been doing, and this was the most difficult part of my job in the Ministry of Education, to bring people who could be trained, to train them, and hopefully for them to stay when I leave, and for them to continue. And this is the biggest pain to me, because there is nothing left there. So it's a vicious cycle here, because politicians can always be a problem, not only in Moldova, even in developed country. It happens, accidents happen. But when you have good quality civil servants, then the damage that the politicians can bring to the country, can do to the country, is smaller. When you don't have strong civil servants, then this just reinforces the problem. How do you get to a system when you can build strong civil service and protect it from politicians? Because this is what developed countries have. Because then it would not allow the politicians to do, or the damage that the politicians will do would not be that big. So this is the vicious cycle that we need to break, and we need to find a way, how do we build these institutions. You mentioned the issue of conditionalities also. They are still there, but apparently they're not very efficient, and there has been a lot of discussions about the conditionalities imposed by the EU especially, and also some international financial institutions in the last few years. And some people are saying that too much credit was given to this government. And I would not, to the governments which were there for the last 5 or 6 years. And I would not blame too much the development partners for what they did at the beginning, because after 8 years of communism, everybody heard people saying the right things in the government, and they believe that they're genuine with what they're saying. But already by 2013 and 14, it was clear that this government is not about what it is saying. So we can still discuss the conditionalities, but it doesn't seem to be enough. There was a question on the education system and on the professional schools. This is a big issue in Moldova. It's not happening the way you're saying. And unfortunately, it's not going to happen very soon, because this is the lowest quality layer of the education. We have started some reforms there, but you need to completely change people there. You need to start with school directors, and this was one of the biggest war we had at the Ministry of Education, because you have people there, school principals, who have been staying for 40 years, and believe me, they have no desire or wish to do something for the school. They're completely, in a different world. Unfortunately, we haven't managed to win the battle, and this means that this is not going to be done soon. There is a need to have completely different people, open-minded, and who believe in things that you have mentioned. I want to respond to the comment from the gentleman who did that, who was part of the investigation mission. I'm really surprised, because when you are the regulator and you wait and see how these things happen, how a big fraud happens, and then you say at the end, well, I haven't been able to do anything. And the governor of the National Bank at some point told me, things happen. We're not the only one around the world. But this was the only answer that he had. And when money laundering and the amount of billions happen in this economy, and the National Bank sees this, because the reporting is there. It's not only the National Bank. When there is a small amount, I don't know, for 500,000 or whatever, when there is a transaction in the banking sector, it is being reported to the National Bank, and it is being reported to the Anti-Corruption Agency. So they had the information. What did they do with this information for the last 5 years? Not talking about what happened before and so on, because what happened before was when they opened up for this kind of operation. So I'm sorry, but I don't agree with this. I do see that the National Bank is part of the problem. And then there was a comment here that we should not reinvent the wheel, that the government should call and hire the right person to do the investigation. The problem is that the government doesn't want to hire, because everybody has been talking about it, and we have no names. Yes, we have one person in prison, but we have no names for the entire amount and so on. So it's clear that the government doesn't want to do it. My fear is that these things continue to happen. We know that we have a few crooks in the banking sector who have been doing this for years and for years. So my fear is that they are continuing to do this. as a civil society, as people who are not part of the government anymore, in my case, can we do something? Can we come up, because we need to educate the society. I need to go back, and what I want to do, I want to talk about these issues at the local level, at the central level. I want to call the attention of people that our legal framework is still very weak, and it's a loophole for these kind of things. But I'm not a specialist. I'm not good at all at financial engineering. You are here. You are the specialist. So can you come and help? Okay, look at the law on the National Bank. Look at the law on financial institutions. And based on what has happened, we know the schemes, at least those that have been used until now. Can we come up with something and then put pressure on the government publicly that the law needs to change today, not in 2 years from now? This is what I'm saying, because I do agree with you. If you have a responsible government, then you call on the right people. And I know that they signed the second agreement with Kroll, but I don't know what's going on there and when is this going to happen and so on. We just don't trust the government, because the government is part of the problem, and that's why it's not going to be willing to disclose this. On the short-term and long-term political goal in Moldova, whose goal? Do you mean there was a question here? The goal of those who are in power is very clear. They want to stay for as long as possible. The goal of those who are outside and who don't agree, want them to go. Of mine, well, I guess it's we're not talking about political goals when it comes to the movement that I started. We can talk about it in the coffee breaks, to be correct, towards this panel.
Thank you, Maya. Dorin?
Yeah, I wanted to just commend Mr. Meyer on a few points so well made, and the parallels drawn between Romania, why Romania moved forward and we haven't, and also to the Romanian gentleman that said that we can do it our way, and there's somehow, look, Romania got pushed into the European Union with a huge help from the US, because after 9/11, Romania allowed the United States to build a huge base, and it allowed for about a bunch of black sites. Germany did not want you in the EU, did not want Bulgaria. America insisted. So I guess what my point is that the change has to come from the outside. In your case, it came from the outside as a result of a national tragedy here. And you benefited. You benefited because now, I've been to Bucharest, it's crawling with foreigners. It's crawling with foreigners. So this is what we want to do. Now, can the diaspora contribute and raise money? Absolutely. We're all Moldovan citizens here. We vote. We can have a political action committee, and we can help shape the agenda for somebody on the ground that can pivot and seek assistance from the outside, or maybe not seek assistance, but maybe we get critical mass in the diaspora and in the opposition where we get noticed, just like you got noticed, because you, at the time, had the luck of having the leadership that said, okay, this is an opportunity, we're gonna let America fight its terrorism from our shores, to a certain extent, right? So that, I guess, the main point is we need help from the outside. I don't know how we ask for it, whether we mobilize here, but it's two things. We need to hit critical mass in the diaspora and critical mass in the opposition at home on the ground.
Thank you, Dorin. Vadim?
Just a quick comments to the question raised by the gentleman, the investigation, Romanian gentleman. Central bank does have a lot of power in Moldova to block transactions that appear to be suspicious. In fact, Moldova is part of the currency control and capital movement control regime. If I'm not mistaken, any transaction, any wire transfer above $3,000 must be approved by someone in the central bank. And we're talking here about hundreds of millions of dollars changing hands in a matter of hours or days, going from one fake entity to another fake entity. Doesn't that cause any suspicion? Shouldn't the central bank block that transaction on track? Am I mistaken here? Oh. that's so they could have done it. And additionally, most of these wire transfers go through the servers that are controlled by CNA. So they knew about what was going on. And if you see entities that have no meaning purposes other than just moving money from one bank account to another, from one offshore zone into another, that should have caused immediately suspicion and blocked those transactions. So they could have done it, they haven't done it. So the argument that they've done everything, I don't think that's a valid one. Second, to the gentleman, can they trace the money? Of course they can. I personally worked, when I was on Wall Street, we've used a lot of private investigative services to do due diligence on our investments. And in fact, I work to scroll a lot. I know miracles those guys can do. Every single transaction goes through SWIFT. They can trace those money and find out where the money is. I mean, it's not the problem. The problem is time. As time goes by, then things change and it's harder to find people. That's why it's so important for some individuals now, government, to stay in control, just to basically destroy what's left. So that's what is. And finally, my last comment, I guess it's on how to change things, either from below or from the outside. We as taxpayers, we can go and ask our government just to basically institute some control over the money that they send to Moldova. That's pretty much it. And request that they apply some pressure and do something about the corruption out there. I know the amounts are maybe not that big, but still it's something that we can do, and hopefully they will respond to that.
Thank you, Vadim. Mr. Meyer, some questions to you.
Thank you. Just very, very briefly, Ambassador Lupin mentioned the importance of the diaspora lobbying, and I couldn't agree more, but I think we need to look at the experience of Romania and of Poland and why they were successful and what Moldova needs to do in its unique circumstance. In the case of Romania, you had the business community that was far more effective than the Romanian diaspora. The Romanian diaspora in the 1990s in particular was completely divided and were mostly lobbying against Romania, not for Romania. But it was the business community that lobbied for the country and for changes within the country. So we don't have that for Moldova at this moment. You had some very active ambassadors that were working very, very hard on behalf of Romania. For the first 10 years, Moldova did not send an ambassador to the United States that spoke English. That obviously was disastrous for the country. At the moment, there isn't an ambassador. There is only poor Vacislav that has to, basically carry an enormous burden on his shoulders without having a full-time ambassador here. So that's another problem. Poland, on the other hand, has a huge diaspora with money and with elected officials. So they're able to do things that, again, Moldova can't do. So what can Moldova do? You can't just call your congressman. Yes, I mean, you can, of course, but it's not going to mean anything. Only cash and votes matter. But if you target the effort of everyone here and aim it at the appropriate people in Congress, and we can have a discussion of who that would be. It might be the people who are in the Moldovan U.S. caucus. It might be other people in the Foreign Relations Committee. But if you target that, then you may have at least some ability to affect U.S. policy. Then quickly, it's too long to talk about what the action plan involved. And there's actually an issue in my mind as to whether or not the time has passed for us to even do something from a statute of limitations point of view. But the action plan, when it was presented to the Moldovan government and actually adopted, it basically involved going to the heart of the problem, which is Russia. And it involved lawsuits brought in various European capitals against the Russian government, based really on the same theory that the Alashku case was based on. I mean, Russia became responsible for what the Transnistrians did in the European Court of Human Rights to Ili Yashku as a result of a decision that indicated that it was basically the Russians that controlled Transnistria. Everybody knows it is, and it's something that could be done subject to what I've just said, statute of limitations issues and so on, to basically go after the Russians monetarily. For, what am I talking about? For all of the Moldovan factories and businesses and so that have been basically stolen. So, and then the final, just one little point is, I think angel investing, if you can do that on behalf of the diaspora, and there's enough trust to find those businesses in Moldova, and I'm sure they're plentiful, that are worthy of investment, that's a great idea. You know, I think as Moldovans, you can do that because you understand the country and you'll feel a little more comfortable than somebody from, you know, someplace in the United States that really doesn't even understand Moldova. Could you sign me up? I'll tell you something. I would love to find something to invest in Moldova. And every time I've raised it, and I've said it to people in the Moldovan government and in business, they all say, yes, you know, we'd love to have you, you know, and I've just never found anything. So yes, you could sign me up, actually. All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have lots of questions, suggestions, proposals, and I'm sure both Evgenia and Elena, we will you know, combine, collect all of these ideas, and we'll follow up on them. Some of them we'll discuss the second panel, yes, after the break, and we still have time to for informal discussion and coffee breaks this afternoon. Thank you very much. We are breaking now for lunch. Do you want to give us any details, or? Yeah, I mean, it's a lunch break.
There is a buffet right here outside, but I have an announcement to make. For those that want to join us tonight for dinner, please approach the desk right there and sign up for it. And,
thank you, everybody.
Yes,
thank you.
And enjoy your lunch, and hopefully we'll...
When we come back?
1 hour or 45 minutes?
45 minutes should be
45 minutes. Okay, then we'll be here at 2 as scheduled.
Thank you, everybody.
Yes, isn't it?
No, that's not 45. No.
45 minutes. It's 50. Like, what is the time now?
It's 40 minutes.
In 45. Oh, in 45 minutes. Okay, 2 o'clock.
2 o'clock, okay.
Yes.